doing this webinar for StarWeaver, and let me give you a very brief introduction of my work. My name is Stefano Messori, and I live in Dublin, in Ireland. I am originally from Italy, and what I do for a living is what I define being a design strategist. And beside being a design strategist that I explain what actually means, I'm also an online trainer and facilitator. Now, what I do as a design strategist is that I help organizations to create a design agenda around initiative that spur organic growth. As I was saying at the beginning, is how can we grow organically? How can we create new initiative for around value creation for our users that actually strengthen rather than weaken the strategy of an organization? Now, the way that I work is that most of the time, most of my work is facilitated online with live session or pre-recorded session, and that is aligned with the job of StarWeaver. So there is a natural match in there. Okay, so just having done this quick introduction, let's jump in on the content of this webinar. So I decided to keep this webinar a little bit more interesting, to divide the webinar into 4 main sessions. So the first session, I want really to clarify what is the difference between industrial or product design and strategic design. As I was saying at the beginning of the webinar, there is a lot of confusion in business on how to use design at different levels within the organization. And I want really to clarify this point. What is industrial design, where it comes from, and what is strategic design? After that clarification, I want to move to a second point that is kind of an implementation of the first point. I want to explain what is incremental and what is disrupting innovation. And this dualism reflects the difference between industrial design and strategic design. After that, we are moving towards introducing the frameworks, the mindset, and the processes of strategic design. And the last point is really, I want to close this webinar showing you some tools that I use with my customer that enable collaboration between different teams that are located in different regions in the world, that brings innovation to happen, because are kind of tools that enable asynchronous collaboration on the same initiative. So let's get started with the first point. What is the difference between what we call industrial or conventional product design and strategic design? And in order to get started in this, I want just to say that when we historically think about the impact that design had in business, well, we think about industrial design. What is the starting point for an industrial designer? Well, the starting point for the industrial designer is an existing concept or a product. Now, I am a very visual person, and it's kind of in my nature try to find real case example for this. And I use a very simple object like a chair. When we take a company that manufacture chairs, they can start with the idea of a chair. So it can be a very basic wooden chair, okay? And all of a sudden, what happened? That the company feels the need, pushed by the competition, to create a better chair. And then is when we start to understand that we need not only to create the basic product, obviously a wooden chair is better than standing up, so fair play. But the point is, how can a company build a product, in this case a chair, that is not a basic product, but actually a product, in this case, that is ergonomic, that enables workers to sit in the chair and to be comfortable in it. And that we call the user experience. And what the engineers and the people, the UX people try to do is to create a chair that is ergonomic, that fits the human body. So when you're seated, is a comfortable experience. And after that, we realize in business that is not enough to create a magnificent user experience, but rather is also important how that ergonomic chair looks like. Because imagine you create this amazing chair that is ergonomic, is very comfortable to sit in, but it doesn't fit the environment of a business, and you're targeting business users. So basically, it's a very comfortable chair, but nobody buys the chair because it doesn't fit the office environment. And then is when we start to understand the importance of user interface. That basically says it doesn't really matter, or it's not enough that the chair is comfortable, is ergonomic, but what really matters that on top of that, also the chair needs to be suited for the environment in which your user lives on a daily basis. So that is kind of the organic evolution that design had in the business environment. Now, this is related to industrial or product design, where the starting point is already a formed concept or product, and we try to incrementally make that product more usable, more attractive by the final user. Now, if we switch on the right part of this slide, we actually start to talk about strategic design. And strategic design differs from industrial design mainly for the starting point. When we need strategic design, is because we don't have that basic concept or product that we had in industrial design. So we don't know exactly what is the problem that the customer is experiencing. And obviously, if we ask the customer, what is your product, what is your problem, obviously the definition of the customer will be the obvious definition. I need a chair to sit in. So what really design thinking or strategic thinking better is try to do is try to discover a set of needs that your customer is not able to tell you about, and then try to create a concept around those needs that is both strategically viable for the organization, but also that enables you to express your product in a design way. What does it mean? Strategy focuses on your ability to deliver a product that is in line with the manufacturing plans that you have. So when we look at the strategic viability of a company, we look at the value chain, the way that the company perform activities in order to deliver a value to the user. But when we look at design or design thinking, it really focuses not on the current set of activities or the current product, but rather how can we use that manufacturing plants to deliver more, not only more product or more value, but rather new value to the current user or a user that is not even our customer. So there is a dualism in there. We have strategy that is very rational and design that is very creative. And sometimes we will see in the next part of the presentation, there is kind of a dualism that is difficult to overcome. And bringing them together is kind of bringing together the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. So in conclusion, what is the difference between industrial product design and strategic design is the starting point. In industrial design, we know exactly what the problem is. We just need to create a better product. When we talk about strategic design, we don't even know what the real product is. And we spend time with the final user, trying to observe the users and how we can help them to solve a problem they are not really aware of. Now, this leads us to another very important point that I call, let me see that okay, here, incremental versus disruptive innovation. Okay, what is incremental versus disruptive innovation? Now, if you remember, we have seen the difference between industrial design and strategic design. Now, what we said about industrial design or product design, that we already have a basic product, like the basic wooden chair. And what we are trying to do is applying those best practices, in this case, UX, user experience, and user interface, in order to create a better product. Okay, and this is exactly what I name incremental innovation. What does it mean, incremental innovation? That we acquire the best practices that are emerging in our industry and try to incrementally create a more usable product, a more attractive product. So we have seen the example of a chair. You start from a very basic chair, maybe it's a wooden chair, and then you work around the ergonomics, and then you also try using user interface to create a chair that is attractive to the final user. Now, what is the problem with incremental innovation? Incremental innovation is absolutely needed in any organization, and I think is transparent in any product that you can purchase. I mean, if you just take the iPhone, the first iPhone, I believe they start from number 3. So it was iPhone number 3, and later on there was iPhone number 4, 5, 6. I don't even know what is now, but that is a classic example on how people, the managers within Apple, were able to refine and to enhance the value for the final users. But sooner or later, Apple will will have the need to create the new concept of the smartphone. Not a better smartphone, but is something else. Will redefine the concept of a smartphone. And that is when we will need something that is not only the result of an incremental innovation journey, but rather what I call disrupting innovation. Disruptive innovation is when a company is able to detach itself from the last product that they have created and try to experiment a completely new product that is not a better version of the last product that the company manufactured, but rather a completely new product. And in order to do that, you need to start looking at your users from a different perspective. And that is the ultimate challenge of business innovation. That is creativity. In order to do that, you need to forget what your last problem was and shift your attention. And we will see that later in a much more zoomed perspective on how the first challenge to become designers is actually to forget your product and focus more on the need of the customer. And that again reflects the difference between best practices like UX and UI, in which you create a better product, and disrupting innovation that really requires you to come up with a new product. I mean, ultimately, if you take any time that the iPhone improved their camera or improved the resolution of the screen, their competitors that are capable competitors are able to replicate those practices nearly, at the speed of light. Competitive advantage is not sustainable. And now, what is really interesting here, and I want you to think about this, is that when I speak about customer or user, I work with organizations that decide to apply strategic design to their internal customers and say, who is the internal customer? Well, the internal customer is their employees. And they try to understand how can we use creativity in order to get employees more involved in the activities that the company is performing. What is not working right within the organization? And we start to look at the problem that the employees is having. Sometimes it's a problem, and sometimes it's just creating a better experience that involves the user at the next level, the employees at the next level. So when I'm saying the final user can be both the final customer, but also an employee of the organization. Okay, so let's move forward. Now, we have started clarifying the difference between industrial or product design versus strategic design. We have seen how industrial and product design kind of generate what we call incremental innovation. They are best practices, when strategic design instead generates disrupting innovation. Because ultimately, what we are trying to do with strategic design is really kind of access a set of needs of our customers, that can be an internal customer or the final user, and try to deliver new value for that need that is not only unmet, which means that there is not current solution for it, but is unarticulated. It means that your customer is not even able to tell you what is wrong with his or her experience. So if you think that within an organization, sometimes you don't know, or maybe your employee doesn't know why, doesn't have a higher level of motivation. So we use strategic design in order to understand what is the problem in the first place. Okay, so let's proceed. We are now facing the third point, that is kind of the main part of this presentation. I mean, at the end of the day, the introduction is very important to give you the context of strategic design and how it differs from the main understanding of design in business today. Okay, now I want to give you very briefly an introduction to the strategic design framework, the processes and the tools that we use in strategic design. Okay, so what are the main aspects of strategic design? Well, first of all, as I said, and I said that already 2 or 3 times, but is the main part, is that what we try to do in strategic design is try to redefine the customer problem. What is really affecting the experience of our users when is using our product? Okay, so the focus on strategic design is not solving a problem that we already know, but rather is finding the problem. What is actually at the essence of the problem that our customer or user is facing? And that requires what we call the creative effort, something that companies start to use. And sometimes you have this, I have to say, I have experienced companies where they start to empathize with their customers, even when they do UX and UI, and is very remarkable. But really, to extend that experience, even before you already have a product, you really need to create a strategic session where you bring people together and start a conversation about what the possible problem is for the final user. So the focus is in finding the problem or redefining the problem, and then only then you can focus on creating a better solution for the final user. So I hope this point is kind of clear. Now, what is the second aspect? Is that what we try to do with strategic design is to identify new opportunities for value creation that are in line with the strategy of your organization. It means that obviously there are many, many opportunities out there to create value, but you need to, in a way, to protect the strategy of your organization. Therefore, if you are aware of the activities that your company is performing, you need to open up to opportunity for value creation that in a way are aligned with the set of processes that you are performing in your organization already. So you don't need to change the value chain that you have created within your organization. And the third point that is really relevant is how can I co-create a solution with my final users? Now, that is a very crucial point. Let's say that you came up with a concept, you create different version or iteration of that particular concept or product, and then you start a conversation with the final users and modify or better streamline your product in line with the feedback. So there is a feedback loop from your customer. And based on the contribution or the advice that your customer give you, you are able to refine, to smooth the product in a way that really speaks to the customers, that make it usable. So ultimately, what is strategic design? Strategic design is about, I like this definition, is crafting decision making. Okay, how an initiative really happens or takes place within an organization. And what is really important is that must be integrated into the culture of the organization. I mean, what I experience in companies is that sometimes you have somebody that gets it. You have an employee that is naturally attracted by design or strategic design and kind of set in motion a kind of a microculture, maybe in his team first, his or her team first, and later on it spreads. So what is ultimately is also strategic design is part of the culture of an organization. And most of the time you need a catalyst for strategic design that set up the standards and creates a community of colleagues that really gets it. And they want to implement really an agenda of strategic design that spurs organic growth that is not incremental, but rather disruptive. But now, I receive many times when I give a presentation similar to this, an observation that is very true. There is a fundamental dualism in the word strategy and design. Because if we look at a conventional strategy, we really use the rational thinking. We need to converge our thinking towards an already existing strategy. Okay, so in other words, from many different possibilities, you choose how you compete in your industry. Is also industry centric. It means that most of the time you think about your industry when you think about strategy. In fact, one of the most used tool in strategy is the industry analysis, and is focused on competition. You study your competitors, their moves, and is static in the way that basically you take a snapshot of the industry and then start to make your analysis based on the current situation on the industry. Okay, so just to compare strategy, and now I will answer to a question that we have here. But just let me finish this differentiation between strategy and design. Design is kind of the way that you create a new strategy. How new strategy are born using creative thinking that is divergent rather than convergent. It's interesting because creative thinking really works across industries and solutions. So instead of converging, open up to possibilities where you start to look at what is going on in other industries and try to say how that can be replicated, or is there some value in the model that the other industry are taking that I can use in my own industry. And the last few things, just to finish this comparison, is that we have new opportunities for value creation rather than focusing on competition head to head. We rather want to be creative in creating new opportunities for our final user. And design is dynamic, requires that reframing for the customer needs. Now, but let me take this question just to say, Stefan, what techniques have you found to most effective in convincing fellow executives of the importance and value of design, right, data, and emerging? Okay, brilliant question. Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate this question. And there is a fundamental issue in there, because what we can see of design, and I've learned this when I went at the University of Virginia, and my teacher is Jean Litka, that is one of the leading thinkers about mostly design thinking, and she argued that strategic design, or better design thinking, we can only be able to grasp or to see the point of the iceberg. Okay, that is that the company in a way is able of creating more, in a way, differentiated product through design. But she says, and that is something that I agree very much, that the impact of design really happens below the water. And that are the conversation that happen within the organization. Because what we can see, the ROI of design, is only something that start to happen, unfortunately, when that culture that builds below the water really start to come out of the water, and that reflects in a new product that is not incrementally better, but is a product that is, let's say, completely different from the last product that we have created. But to answer your question, what is the best? I think ROI, return on investment, can be, but I don't think you can use that in the short term. Definitely engagement. Engagement you can show, like for example, as I said before, if you are using strategic design to solve in a situation with, let's say, with your employees or in a team of people, you can see straight away that when the mindset of design start to be combined within or shared among a group of people, later on we will see how there are tools nowadays where engagement skyrocket. And that actually can be shown. And what I use is, in terms of, is kind of my work to make sure that strategic design works within an organization. What I do, I share the number of posts and contribution that are made in a new project. And let me show you just at the end of this presentation how I do that. And I think obviously engagement is the starting point for strategic design. Without engagement, there is no strategic design, because strategic design requires the work of a team. And that, unfortunately, is something that many people believe, that there is the innovative genius within a company that is able, and unfortunately, the figure of Steve Jobs have fostered that idea that there is only one person that is responsible for the whole creative and innovative thinking. But the reality is that you need that team job, that engagement, that alignment, and only when you have that, strategic design really start to emerge as a practice. So I don't know if that is quite, an answer, but Lee, definitely I would say first start with engagement and the ROI will follow. But before you are able to show some ROI data, it might take you a few months of, you need to experience a few months into the process of in the design process, and then maybe ROI will. But also, I would say engagement, when you say engagement now, that I think is not only internal engagement, but also engagement with your customers. What does it mean? It means that I mentioned before that there is a stage of prototyping. And actually, what is really interesting is when you can start to see that your customers start to collaborate with you in order to create a better product. You start to have more feedback faster, and that, I suppose, that is another data that we can use in order to show that actually strategic design is effective. But let's say that the starting point in order to create a design agenda within any organization is switching on the mindset of the designer or acquiring. And in order to do that, first of all, we need to be able to shift our attention from our product or service to our user. Now, this is a problem that is affecting all the industrial economies. If you take engineers, without no offense, are mostly concerned about the spec of the product. What are the specification of the product? When we know that in order to become designers, we need to stop looking only at the product itself, but rather what is the impact that that product is having in the customer's life. And then all of a sudden you understand that the problem with luggage wasn't creating a lighter luggage, but rather the shift in perception the designer had when went to observe the customer says, oh, the first thing that the traveler is doing is placing their luggage on a trolley. Then the revelation was the problem with luggage is not the luggage itself, but rather is mobility. And that is the kind of the shift in perception that I was talking, at the beginning. I was explaining at the beginning of this webinar. We really need to really focus our attention on the user and the experience of using our product. And the second point is really from only focusing on the constraints. Anytime that someone in an organization propose a new idea, is kind of, oh, you're responsible for that idea. Or maybe, oh, we can't do that because otherwise that is not going to work. And that is kind of very limiting for any organization in order to create a new agenda. Because many companies, anytime there is a new idea, they stop the idea even before there was a chance for that person to refine that idea, to start that conversation with the final users. So we need to switch from constraints to new possibilities for value creation. And the last one that is gaining momentum in business is accepting failure and failing fast and cheap. And that is the mantra of very effective companies. They finally realize that failure is only a failure when when you break the bank, when you spend a fortune in creating a product and that nobody wants. But if you prototype and invest very little money in different prototypes, you co-create value with the final users. Well, at the end of the day, you have minimal failures, very small failures that actually are the most valuable source of learning. And that, I suppose, kind of opens up in our understanding on the strength of design and how we can start to, after having developed a mindset, we can start to see the process of design. Now, let me be honest with you. You can have 10 strategic design facilitator or design strategist, and they will show you 10 different frameworks. So I decided to streamline the design process in very 4 central points rather than to enter in the specifics of each point. The most overlooked part of any design process within an organization is the observation part. Now, I was recently talking with somebody that is actually a degree in design, and they said, what is the first step in creating a new design? Well, she said to me, is ideation. Okay, she wasn't necessarily speaking about the business environment, but when we talk about design for business, the first thing that we have to do is not coming up with an idea, but rather to stop our thinking about our product or our features, the product, but rather we need to start to observe, like the example of the travelers. We need not to call people that travels a lot in a focus group and speak with them in a focus group, but rather we need to bring ourselves in their native environment, at the airport, at the train station, to look at their behavior and spot unarticulated customer needs. And obviously that was the reason why the person that had that intuition to put wheels on luggage is because when there, so that the first thing that the traveler was doing was loading the heavy luggage on a trolley. So say, why don't we put wheels on luggage? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that strategic design or design thinking is not something new. I think it's always been there. People were doing this just because they were naturally designers. But unfortunately, what happened is that we have lost in business this tendency to look, to observe, to understand things. And we have, every time we look at our customer, we look at through the lens of our existing product. And we are trapped by the definition of the product. And strategic design really try to do that, try to open up our eyes to a reality that is not filtered by our existing product, but rather a neutral reality. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to forget, our current product. Now, only after we have observed our users in their native environment, we are actually start to build up in our mind. We have some elements to create some concept or solution that is not yet a product, it's not even a prototype, but is an intuition. You start to put down some intuition in a whiteboard, let's say. And then based on that intuition, you kind of run a brainstorming session with different people. You start to bounce idea among each other. And then it's only then, when you have kind of came up with a concept of a solution, you start to prototype. And obviously, what is prototyping? Prototyping is the effort on translating a concept into an artifact. An artifact is something that the users can actually experience and feel. Now, when I say, just to clarify this point, because sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating when I say artifact. Let's say that you are creating an app or a software. Prototyping is so cheap that even before spending $1 in order to pay the coder to code you create that on a piece of paper, and you are like the Wizard of Oz, that when a customer is actually pressing that button on the piece of paper that simulates the app, you behind the scene move the next screenshot that is just a piece of paper. So when I say prototyping is something really cheap that doesn't require a big investment coming from the top of the organization. And after you have prototyped 2 or 3 different model for that original idea that you had, you go out, you test that prototype, and we call this between common a working prototype. It's something that you can actually show to your user, and the user can actually engage with it. And then is more observing the relationship established between the user and your prototype, and try to understand what can be improved, or what you didn't get right. So sometimes you see this process seems linear, but sometimes when you reach the testing process, you can actually go back to rethink about what your product is. So this is kind of a iterative approach rather than linear. The only thing that I would say, if you are not fast enough, you not only will run out of time, but also you will run out of, between common, hope or credibility from your team. So my suggestion is that speed and momentum are essential in any design project. Okay, so where were we? So we started with the definition between industrial and product design and strategic design. We have seen how industrial and product design make an existing product more comfortable through user experience and more attractive by user interface. Instead, strategic design enables us to reframe, to understand what the real problem is. That has been kind of visualized in the difference between incremental and disrupting innovation. Incremental innovation, you already have a product and you incrementally improve an existing product, iPhone 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Disrupting innovation is not longer the iPhone, is a new product that is not just an iPhone, is not a smartphone, but is something that will eventually replace the idea of the smartphone. Then we have seen a little bit of the frameworks, the process, and the mindset required to start a strategic design agenda within our organization. And now, as I promised, I wanted to close this video showing you how it's possible to operationalize what I've shown you. Because up to now, I gave you some ideas, some theories, and say, Stefano, I agree, it's very interesting and is what I get all the time, but can you show me exactly how you can enable a team to bring that into place into a company? And the first tool that I want to show you is a tool that I use with teams. Now, I work mostly remotely, So what is really interesting, and let me try to do this because it makes the webinar a little bit more interactive. I copied this URL and let me see where I can pass this into the chat, because you can actually start to collaborate with me in this. Okay, if I place paste, you should be able to see chat. Let me see. You should be able to see a link in there that if you follow the link, you can actually enter this mural and start to attach post-it in this mural to everyone. Sorry, possibly this arrived only to, I think now is a public link. Now, when you press there, you are able, in that link, you are able to collaborate with me in this mural. So what is a mural? Now, what is in front of you is actually a 3-meter by 2-meter poster. It's huge. And normally we do this in a physical room with our clients. But because we have many clients where the innovation team is spread among different countries, we need to be able to create something that is digital and start to work. Now, if you double click on it, look what happened. I say that I want to work on the persona. I double click in that. You can see that I can start to place some post-it. A post-it is an idea or can be a comment of somebody else's idea. So do you remember when, and I want to just to say this, do you remember when I was saying, how can we justify the investment in strategic design? And I was saying, well, the engagement. Well, this tool is able to show you how much engagement is happening in a poster that is a collaborative effort in now whoever is in there, if you can zoom in inside the canvas and you are able, oh perfect, you are already typing. Okay, now this tool is really a creative tool, and it starts with creating a customer persona. Now, I don't want to enter in the specific of what a persona is, but a persona basically is not a real customer, but rather is a typical customer, is a fictional characters that embed the characteristic of a specific set of customers. And after we describe different type of personas, we create an empathy map. So we place the persona in the middle and we try to understand what is that person feeling, what is saying and do. And one thing that I discovered as a design strategist is that there is a very low ratio of say and do ratio. Many users, when asked, say something that when observed, they actually don't do. A very simple example, just to make a joke. When Netflix send out a survey, so which kind of show are you looking? You know, the main answer was, we are looking at documentaries and we are looking at, something that is, culturally engaging. The reality, when they look at the stats of what Netflix most view show were the common, TV series. So what does it mean? That if you put a customer on the spot, it might be that it comes up with things that are not necessarily true just because they sound good. So do you remember when I say we need to look at the way that they behave rather than to listen what they say? So we start with the persona, we create an empathy map, and then we start to create what is called the customer journey mapping. And what we are trying to do here is to identify 5 or 6 touching points that the customer is experiencing when using our product, and we try to understand, oh, here there is, and this kind of charts out the emotional up and downs. And what we're trying to do as a designer is this is kind of a pain point. So what we are trying to do is actually to reduce the negative, feelings that the customers, or again, that particular users experience in that point in time. And let's say that I want to put a comment in there, and I can start commenting, Stefano, I believe, and I leave my comment in there. Next time that we meet up as a team, we start to discuss all this kind of possibility to reduce the negative impact for the final users. And then, based on the all observation, we start to understand, is there actually a bigger idea behind that? Can we create value in a way that is disruptive, rather than just creating a new version of an existing product? Okay, so basically now we have seen the customer persona, the empathy map, the customer journey mapping. This is all creativity. But as I said, there is a dualism in strategic design. Where is the strategic part of this? Well, in this case, I just highlighted here, we need to be careful when we create a design project. What are the available resources within our organization? For example, what is the funding? What are the people that we can rely upon in order to create a design opportunity? What is the infrastructure that we avail, and how long time we do ourselves in order, and you remember, momentum is essential. We analyze also the current solution to the problem, and also we kind of identify the use cases of either that user when you use that product, or even, as I said, design is also important to look at other industries and try to find out how users, maybe in different industries, relates to the product. Now, why this platform is powerful? Because like now, we can run a live session with our team, do a kind of a real-time collaborative brainstorming. I can be based in Dublin, somebody in India, somebody in the US or in Japan, doesn't matter. The only problem here is the time, and that is the power, because enables asynchronous collaboration. It means that somebody that is working with me on this project can wake up tomorrow morning in the other side of the world and receive a set of notifications that say, oh, Stefano commented on your comment. So really enables creativity to take a completely new level within spread team. And I think IBM is one of those companies that really is using this product. And now let me show you. This is kind of an online tool that I use with my customer in order to run a different type of session. And let's say that there is something good. There is an outcome of this that we need to put down into project management. Okay, so the tool that I use in order to operationalize a new idea is based on the concept of Kanban. Kanban is a tool that was invented within Toyota in order to maximize the speed of production. What I have created here is basically the idea of a Kanban, but rather than using that to manufacturing, we use the Kanban in order to speed up the innovation process, okay? Making sure that creativity really is embedded into the decision-making of an organization. So for any new idea that comes out of our brainstorming session, we create a project. And for each project, we can set that down, we write down a set of, no, it's just loading, is a little bit slow today. But for each part of the project, we can create different tasks. We can decide who is responsible for that task. We can set down deadlines for that particular task. And any meeting that we have is based on opening this canvas. Now it's not loading, unfortunately. Let me see if I press on another part of the project, if it's loading. IT is not on our side today, but basically enables us to see the different subtasks that relate to that particular part of the project, how many of those have been completed, And if there is a problem in there, what is the powerful part of this platform is that if there is a problem, then we are able to visualize that problem because that task is not being done. So when a project, a strategic design project is delaying, this platform tell you, okay, the problem is here. So what we do, okay, finally it's happened. So let's say that this is a task within the project of strategic design. There is an attachment. Now, I don't want to open it because it will take too long, but you can put a description of that particular task. We can set a start date. Let's say that it starts tomorrow. We can also set reminders for our teammates. And the most important thing, it needs to be done by the 28th. So we put a deadline in it. And also here, we can delegate who in our team is going to be responsible for that particular action. Okay, so this is a project management tool that takes the outcome of our creative, session, put that into a management, a time-based tool, and we find eventually who is responsible for that part. We design who is responsible for that particular part of the project, and this basically is a platform that I'm using. So it's design.stefanomessori.com, but you can use a free version. It's called Trello. I think Trello. Is very famous. So Trello, if you just go to Trello.com, is free to use, and pretty much is there is another Asana. Asana is another tool that you can use, but if you just type in on the internet, different project management app, you can see that there are many that come up. So this is pretty much the stuff that I want to show you. And honestly speaking, I'm thrilled to be working today because the tools that we avail for strategic design today, in terms of collaboration, in terms of sharing that interaction with our peers or with our team, has never been so powerful. Now, there is no reason why companies can be innovative. There is, oh, I can't communicate with that person because there is a time gap. Now is asynchronous. Ideas can always occur in your mind. The point is, do you know what are the tools? Do you know what is the framework of design? And if we start to use this tool and we start to educate other people within our organization on how to use them and how funny, there is an element of gamification. I mean, if you take this software, which is called Mural, I'll write down for you, Mural. Mural was born, and this actually is a classic example of what I'm saying about strategic design. The first idea of Mural was creating a video game. Okay, they create a prototype, they give that to the users and start to understand, actually, based on the feedback, it might be something completely different. What? A creative collaboration tool for remote teams. So you see how Murat itself as a company open up the possibility for new design opportunity, new strategic design that reinforce their competitive advantage rather than hurting. Because the same activities that are needed to create a video games can also deliver value for business people that understand the value of design and bringing design to a collaborative space. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time, and it's nearly the hour now. Now, first of all, thank you very much for being in this webinar for so long and stay with me till the end. I know that is a lot to take in. When we talk about strategic design, is well beyond our understanding of design as UX and UI, but is something that really can enable the next wave of competitive advantage for organization. We just need to be able to familiarize with those tools, with the mindset of design, with the process of design. And I think if we bring all together that maybe it takes, we need to build up that iceberg, that half of it is below the water. We really are able to demonstrate the impact of design with the ROI. That is the last piece that we are able to build. It might take a few months before we get the result, but we start monitoring the engagement. What is the participation? And let me close this webinar to say something that I believe is a fundamental truth in business. We as managers can, in a way, force people to be more productive in their daily task. We can ask them, oh, you need to finish that job by 5 o'clock this evening. The only thing that we can't order is people to be creative. People are creative because they want to be. People really brings their best contribution to businesses when they feel part of a project. And I believe that nowadays having these aligned tools bring people, if they want to, be part of something that is a work in progress rather than something that is just getting a little bit better. And when you get your employees in this, I think the challenge of design is pretty much won. We have done our job as a design strategist. So thank you very much again. Please feel free to connect and be in touch with Paula Starweaver if you find this program entertaining, and maybe we can set up another webinar that explains maybe other aspect of strategic design a little bit better. And definitely thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.
We are Starweaver. Education you can bank on. For more information, contact us.